Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, and today we are going to clarify the difference between @bean annotation and @component. Before we start, if you are new to the channel, please consider subscribing, and if you like the video, please give the thumb up and leave a comment to improve the content. So let's get started. First, annotation @bean and @component in Spring Framework, they both serve the same purpose, which is dependency injection. We did a whole video about dependency injection. You will find the link into the description. Just to make short summary, dependency injection is the concept which Spring Framework provide beans of object that need to be creating instances and injecting them into the code. So to get back to @bean and @component, as we said, they both serve the same purpose, but they differ on the way they perform dependency injection. Let's start with @component. We use @component by annotating a class with the annotation. It's a way to tell Spring this class must be treated as a bean. If any class needed, you should be initiated and injected into the code. @bean, on the other hand, handle it a little bit different. We annotate a function inside the class with the annotation @beans, which tells Spring this function return an object. This returned object should be treated as a bean. But you may ask, how Spring knows that there is a function inside the class that is annotated with @beans? Spring resolved that by annotating the class that holds the function with @configuration, which tells Spring to scan the content of this class for beans. So now let's take a dive into the code to see all of that in action.
Hello again. So here we are in the code, and we're gonna see the @beans and @component in action. Here I have a very simple application with a Java Spring application with a simple REST controller that calls a get function, construction injection, and return a simple string. Nothing fancy. So if I start my application, I'm gonna see if we go to localhost, we see my data being displayed. Okay, so now let's see @component. How can we inject a bean, into our code via @component? First of all, I'm going to create a class called let's call it my repo, and it's a class. It's not nothing fancy, so we are having string get data and return my component repo. So nothing fancy. So we have this class, okay? So if we try to call it here, let's try to make it private, and if we try to call my repo where again, yes, public. Let's make this function public. So if we try to call get data here and we restart our application here, and we try to call the same, we're gonna have an error telling us that a null pointer because this class is not being injected. So for my repo injection, for the first part, we just have to need to add component to be injected into the context, and from here let's make our variable final and injected via a constructor with parameter. And if we restart our class and we go back to our browser and refresh, we see my component repo, the same text that is here. So to summarize stuff, we have add component here. To injected, we defined a simple repo, and here we injected via constructor. We did the video about dependency injection. You can see it if you know that you want the difference between constructor injection, field injection, etc. injection. Okay, so to illustrate now, let's go to the add configuration and add bean to see the other way to inject our service. So for that, let's create another repo. Let's go to my repo, my repo bean for that. Okay, let's remember that at bean to be used is to define a function that return an object, and this tells Spring to treat this object as a bean. For that, my function will return my repo. Let's call it get repo. Doesn't take any does not take any parameters, and return new instance of my repo. So we are going to annotate my class with @bean, and the function with @bean, and the class with @configuration. So with that is, like we said, it's the way to tell Spring this class, when you annotate it with @configuration, is the way to tell Spring to scan this class, because there is a class inside that return an object, and this object you should treat it as a bean, and you inject it into the application context, and the function is annotated with @bean. So if we go back, if we, for example, here in my repo, we remove @component, so my class, my repo will not be injected via @component, but we want it to be injected with @bean. If we go back to our code here, we don't change anything. I will tell him, please go look for my repo, inject it, and use it here. If we restart our application and go back here, let's see, it works the same. Just to make sure that we are doing exactly works, because the injection is going by this function. Let's restart and re-access, and you see here my repo 2. So just to sum things up, here we have a simple class REST controller that uses my repo, and we've seen two ways to be inject into the application context. The first way was by adding @component at the class level, and this will create an instance of this class. The second way to do it is to annotate some class with @configuration, and this is the way to tell Spring you should class the content of this class for beans. So we created a function that return a new instance of my repo, and we annotate the function with @beans. So @beans, remember, this is the way to tell Spring this is the function. This function will return an object, and this object you should treat it as a bean and inject it. So this was the two ways to do this was the difference, I'm sorry, between @bean and @configuration. They do the same thing, but they do it in two different ways. So That concludes the video of today. Thank you for watching. Remember, if you like the video, you can give it a thumb up. And if you like the content, please subscribe to our channel. Thank you and see you in the next video.